Hi, and welcome back to Talking Shop in the Shop. I'm your host, Frank Gucciardo, the Executive Director at orderplans.com, a division of PKAD Architecture and Design. And we're grateful to have you back here with us. We've got a fantastic, very unique guest today, Anthony Curcio, Curcio Law.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Yeah. So Anthony, you have a very unique background, right? So Anthony and I, we've been working together now for some time, and Anthony started his professional career working for the municipalities on code enforcement and whatnot. You went on and you're an achiever. You're a hustler. You're the bread and butter of America.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah.
Went on, studied for the bar, went to law school, and now you're a practicing attorney in zoning and real estate attorney. So this is a very special episode because we have somebody on both sides of the municipality, and I know everybody watching is in some way interfacing with the bureaucracy. So Anthony, just give me like a little timeline of your background, and so
Sure.
we have an idea.
I appreciate the very nice intro, by the way. You set the bar very high, so hopefully I'll meet that. Started my career right out of college. Went and worked for the planning department of a municipality. Did that for about 3 or 4 years. Decided I wanted to switch gears a little bit. Went into code enforcement. So basically, I dealt with everything from commercial to residential properties, with building violations, zoning violations, anything like that.
Right. So you were the guy that everyone was grinding their teeth with as you put the ticket on.
I was basically
you were that guy.
I busted chops for a living, pretty much. So
you were that guy.
You do that for a while, it takes a toll on you, and I'm not a confrontational person, so despite being in that profession, I was like, this is kind of,
right.
I need to do something more with my life. And,
right.
As you start getting into the code enforcement, I was going to court, every once a month or something, just helping out with some of the violations, because the attorneys aren't there, so you kind of give them a little bit of a background as to what's going on initially. And getting that experience in court and my background in real estate, I also sold real estate for a little bit.
So you were an agent?
Yes,
I
was a broker.
So
got my license in 2008, so the perfect time to get your license.
Right. But the blood, right in the middle of treading water in the blood. Yeah,
exactly. I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and then just changed gears.
Right.
And I was going to court, and I was like, you know what? I really enjoy this. I want to do something more in my life. I think I'm going to go to law school, become a real estate attorney. My family does some real estate also, so they do a little bit of development and this and that. So it's in my blood. Grandfather did it, had his own insurance and real estate brokerage forever.
Yep.
So I went full-time at night while working a full-time job. It was
for you.
Yeah,
man.
It was tough.
But that's what is great about America.
Yeah.
Right? It is the pursuit of happiness. It is the achievement so that you can provide a service to your fellow man and be rewarded for it.
Yeah.
And you have that capacity and freedom to do it.
Yeah.
That's
happiness.
awesome.
Happiness.
That's awesome.
I always say happiness is a choice. It's not, given to you. You can be happy. You just got to do what you want. You got to put your mind to it.
Correct.
And that's what I did. Listen, it wasn't easy.
Nobody gave this
I was
to
a
you.
newlywed on top of that. So my wife, God bless her, she dealt with that for the first year of law school. So 5 days a week I'm there. 4 days a week I'm there till 10 o'clock at night. Coming home late nights, studying all weekend. I'm a newlywed. There's a lot of stuff going on, and.
And she
was a good sport. I'd come home
pulling together.
Oh, she's a great cook, so she always had dinner ready for me. Hence, the weight gain. That was not too hard with my wife's cooking. Absolutely, absolutely. She's an amazing cook, so she was always supportive with everything. She was great with that. Got through that 3 years. Studied for the bar, which that's a huge task on its own, and I passed. It was amazing. So once that happened. I can't do code for it. I'm going to be an attorney, so it's time to switch gears a little bit. They were nice enough to let me work at the town attorney's office for about almost 3 years as an assistant town attorney.
As assistant town attorney.
Assistant town attorney. Yeah, I did a lot of personal injury, property litigation. I did some of the code enforcement stuff that I was on the other side for. I was now doing some of the prosecuting for that. So that since I had the experience, it was a no-brainer.
Right. So you really had this very rich. Almost like an apprenticeship that you didn't realize you were under.
Yeah, it was like they call it institutional knowledge, I guess.
Institutional knowledge, so absolutely.
I gained a lot of that through my journey, through the municipality, and it helped me out once I left. After a while, I decided, I really didn't like the litigation. Just like I said, I'm not a confrontational person. So I wanted to switch gears, kind of get into more of the transactional end, the zoning end of that stuff. So I left there, was fortunate enough to get a job at Sir Tillman Ballin, which is one of the bigger firms on the island. Worked under Howie Stein and Dan Baker, two tremendous attorneys.
Right.
Got a lot of mentorship from them and learned a ton there. After about 3 years, it was, big law was, big laws for certain people. It just, didn't, I kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit and went to a smaller firm.
Just pause you real quick because you said something that, I have 4 sons.
Sure.
And I'm telling them all from the minute they can understand me that one of the great secrets in life that most people don't know is that you need to have a mentor.
Absolutely.
And that mentor, you said that, is like, the flag goes off.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's imperative that a man is mentored in life and in his work world and many other areas.
Especially when you're starting out as an attorney, it's huge.
Sure.
So I had Howie Stein, who's at the time was probably 35 years an attorney. Dan Baker was doing it for 20 years. And I also forgot to mention Lou Soloway, who basically started practicing law when homes were like $10,000.
Right.
The guy basically helped develop Long Island.
Right.
And he's forgotten more than I'll ever know.
Sure.
Let's put it that way.
Sure.
So learning from guys like that, I mean, how could you not pick up a lot, learn, and become a better attorney?
Of course.
So it was a very great experience for me.
Right.
Once I left there, I went to a smaller boutique firm with about seven attorneys, Brown, Altman, and DeLeo. That, I got mentorship at Sir Tillman, but it's a big firm, so the mentorship, they're very busy people. I'm just going to say that. Getting their time is a lot more difficult than it is at a smaller firm, just because of the nature of the business.
Sure.
That's not a knock on them; it's just the way it is.
It is, yeah, of course.
And over at Brown, Altman, and DeLeo, I was able to get a ton of mentorship from all the partners, and that's where I really excelled, because not only are you getting mentorship, but they're throwing a ton of work at you. So it's sink or swim. So I had to become a better attorney, and I did. I really between my land use and zoning, which I was doing maybe 75% of my work was that. And then I was doing a lot of work for banks, doing lending work and that sort of thing. And especially around 2020, 21, interest rates were at 3%. So everybody's refinancing.
Sure.
There was enough work to go around.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was a great time,
Right. So you really come to the table, and that's why I was telling our, in the intro, that your resume of experience from, being sort of boots on the ground on the bureaucracy side of the municipality to working and fighting through to secure your lawyer's degree and passing the bar, and then prosecuting, and then shifting over and being mentored at a prestigious firm, and then being a real producer on this land use side. That really gives a very well-rounded professional.
Yeah.
So
and it's great because when you're in the bigger firm, you have different clients than you do at the smaller firm.
Sure.
So I'm at the bigger firm, you're dealing with big-time developers, condo developers, commercial developers, like nationwide.
Yeah.
At this firm, there was we had fast food restaurants, gas stations.
Yeah, right.
Which is a different client, still national chains.
Right.
But it was different kind of land use, different restrictions and that sort of thing. So you're
Right.
getting a wealth of knowledge, and you're going into different industries and stuff. It was a lot of fun. It's interesting.
Good. Good. So you have this breadth and timeline of great experience. So maybe we can just, for the benefit of the audience, maybe we could move through it and be able to talk about where the homeowner or other professionals would benefit from that knowledge. So let's start at the municipality.
Okay.
Because this comes up all the time, right?
Sure.
So now let's just pretend, let's rewind the clock 15 years or whatever it was.
Sure.
And now you're in plans examination and you're in code enforcement. You're on the other side. Greg's clients have come to us and they got a ticket, they have a violation, there's an illegal apartment in the basement, or they're getting ready to close and on a transaction, and there's open CO because dad built this rear addition with Uncle Bobby in 1973, and we just did things back then,
Sure.
So
yeah.
So there's a great fear that I, when I'm talking to homeowners, that I don't want to talk to the town.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hesitation. And do I need to do this? And then they'll talk to the builders, and the builder, we'll go do it without the permit, right? So maybe we could just let's talk about the checks and balances, like the purpose of the town. Are they there to break everyone's shoes? Is that their sole purpose in life? No, it's not.
No,
it's
but
not.
they get the reputation, and I don't know, I guess some of that is true, obviously. There's a little bit of truth to that.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's about safety.
Right.
They're trying to make sure that it's built to code, that you didn't have some fly-by-night guy who may not even be a contractor, just do some construction in your house, or the house is going to collapse or blow up or whatever the case may be. I mean, especially with pools, that's probably the biggest offender and the thing that municipalities look out for the most, because every year you're going to see some kid that drowned. There's always some tragic story, unfortunately.
Sure.
And it could have been avoided with building it to code, especially now with the pool codes. You got to have an alarm in the pool. You got to have a gate that swings and closes automatically. Certain amount of the fence height. The pool's got to be a certain amount of feet from the property line. So I mean, these things aren't put in just to give everybody a hard time. They're there for a reason. And I understand the homeowners' hesitation with that, because maybe they did it without a permit and they don't want to get in trouble now. But you're going to get nailed one way or the other.
One way they're going to find you.
They're going to find out either. When you go to sell your house, it's going to pop up on a survey.
Right.
The bank's going to want to know what's going on here.
Right.
And now you're running around scrambling to get it legalized before you're closing.
Right.
And who knows how long that's going to take.
And God forbid it's encroaching on the setback, and now you have zoning issues in courts.
And if you got violations, and you got to go to the zoning board, or you got to rip it up, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars that you don't really want to spend when you're selling your house.
Right. So, okay. So let's talk about the checks and the balances, and why this is in place. Right. So we got three parties involved.
Yeah.
Really four, right? So the homeowner, stakeholder sits off to the side and they're watching, and they don't really know because they've probably never done this before. So you have the design professional, architect, engineer, right? And they listen to the homeowner, and they craft what they want, they put it on paper. We take the survey, we do the site plan, and then we look at zoning laws and where the setbacks are, and we place it all. Then those construction drawings go to plan review, zoning, and it goes to the builder for pricing. Right? And then what happens? So now it comes to you. Now, what's your job?
As the attorney?
As the code enforcement and plan review.
As a plan review, I'm making sure the architect did their job correctly, pretty much. We're a second set of eyes.
Second set of eyes.
Basically to see that everything was drawn to code correctly, there wasn't a mistake in numbers or whatever the case may be. Yeah, I mean, you use AutoCAD, but there's always mistakes that could be made.
Yeah, there's stuff that, and you may take a code class where things change.
No, it's required.
Right.
Statewide,
so you're always being updated. And then at the very bottom in the fine print, some other attorney wrote, right, up to the judgment of the authority having jurisdiction.
Yeah. I don't know how well
talk about that one.
I don't know how well that works. But,
talk about that one.
At the end of the day, the architect's putting a stamp on there.
Right.
And it's his license on the line.
Right. But
whether or not you're going to put it on the jurisdiction,
right.
I mean.
No. I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Okay.
Meaning that the plans examiner has the final say. The code says this, but then the plans examiner has the final say.
Yes.
And sometimes, as the architectural firm, we're back and forth on this debate, and then the plans examiner says, "I want it like this." Okay.
You may want it like that, but the state code will determine exactly.
Right.
At the end of the day. And
But this is a moving target, right? It's a moving target, and it's a dialogue. It's a dance.
For sure. Absolutely.
It's a dance. It's a back and a forth. And you want it to be black and white. And sometimes it is. But sometimes you got to live in gray, and then...
Right, especially if you're a design professional. You got people want something. You're trying to meet the client's needs.
Right.
While, meeting the needs of the planning examiner.
Correct.
The plan examiner.
Yes.
So it's a nice little dance you do there.
So there's a dance here,
Absolutely.
right? And then those plans come out with usually a red stamp that says approved or whatever dates on it, right? It gets all marked up.
Right.
And then that's what gets built.
Right.
Now the builder, the third party in this process, now goes to execute. Now, so you've checked us, and now the builder is going to execute. They're going to read our plans that have the red stamp that's approved.
Yeah.
And now they're going to execute. And then at various stages, then building inspector is going to come now and
make sure it's exact to
line up with
specification. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and if it's off, what happens?
Dig it up, move it, fix it,
whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So ultimately, the town is in place for the benefit of The homeowner.
Absolutely.
The homeowner doesn't know what the hell's happening.
From the design phase to making sure that your contractor's doing what they're supposed to do.
Correct. And that he's licensed.
And he has
insured,
insurance. and he's got a license with the township and the county and everything else.
Correct.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's this check and balance, and then there's the builder. I don't know. Find some undiscovered deficiency. We've uncovered an old abandoned, septic tank or we got oil in a buried tank someplace.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Boy.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Nobody wants to hear that call. But then the phone call comes to our office to say we found organic debris wherever here, and we had to put some helical piles in and grade whatever has to happen.
Right. Let's do some environmental work and see if anything spilt or anything else.
Correct. So they come to us, we go back to them, then the town goes back and looks at the amendment. Right. So it's this three-part process.
And I think that's the other part that people are hesitant about is the back and forth and how long it takes. They want it done now. They want it done now. Time is money. I want to be able to use my pool this summer.
Correct.
I want my extension done. I got kids on the way.
Correct.
Whatever the case may be, and I think people lose patience with that, but it's for a reason. It's not just because. It's not just because. There's a reason for it.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, it may take you an extra few months to get it approved and finalized.
Right.
But you could sleep well at night knowing
that it's done.
That the architect did their job, the town did their job, builder built it according to the plans, and everything's to code.
Correct.
And if you go to sell your house, you don't have to worry about anything. So at the end of the day, it's all for a reason.
Right.
Whether you like it or not.
Right.
And you got to have patience sometimes.
So we were talking about a job that broke the process, right? This pool that was installed.
Yes.
Tell me about. Why don't you tell me about that?
It was basically a gentleman wanted to put a pool in his backyard. He told the pool contractor what he wanted to do. Pool contractor said, "I'll take care of it." Leaves to go to work. Comes home.
No permit.
Nope. Yeah.
No
they
permit.
didn't. Never bothered to get the permit.
Right.
He didn't know that because he gives it to the. People are busy. They work. They don't have time to run permits back and forth. They don't want to get an expediter. They have a pool guy that's going to take care of it anyway.
Right.
So they go, okay, great, take care of it. I'll just tell me what it costs, and I'll cut you a check.
Right.
So everything was supposed to be said and done. Goes to work, comes home, pool's installed, didn't get permits. Nothing. And they come back a couple more days. I guess the neighbor or whoever told the village, came by, gave a few stop work orders, finally stopped the construction of the pool. Winds up being that not only did they not get a permit, they didn't do anything to code. So they didn't ask for permission, and then they built it incorrectly. So they're a foot away from the fence.
So you have a zoning violation.
Right.
Right. So it's encroaching zoning.
Exactly.
Break zoning code.
Exactly. And
It's in.
So it's like, what do we do now?
Right. So you can't do this.
No, it's
with
not.
A pool. Right.
Right. No, it's a little harder than that. Like that. Yeah, it's a little harder than moving a table. So he's like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, you already got violations. You're going to have to go either remove it or go before the zoning board.
Right.
Like,
so cue the attorney.
For a variance.
Right. So now they come to you.
Between the building violations and trying to get a variance, I'm like, all right, well, you're pretty close to the fence. I can't make any guarantees they're going to pass it, especially with a pool. They're very strict.
Right.
I always preface that with the client too. Like, nothing's guaranteed. You're asking the town to go against what the code that they wrote.
Right.
To give you special permission. I go, there's always a chance they deny it.
Right.
But you make a presentation to the board as to why you can do it, and you give them a good reason to pass it.
Right.
They'll do it. But in this case, there's no precedent for this before.
Right.
There's never been from what I could tell in the neighborhood, there was no pools that close to the fence.
Right.
So, it's a heavy lift from the beginning. Plus, you got violations because you did it without permits.
Right.
So they're going to see, whether they should bring that in. They're really not supposed to consider that when they're considering a zoning board application, but it's in the back of their head whether you like it or not. So. And
this is in a village, you said, correct?
It's in a village.
So
yeah, I don't want to. Villages are much more stricter than townships.
Tell that to the audience.
The villages have a stronghold on their zoning code. They're much more stricter. They're very strict compared to townships. Townships are strict too, but villages, that's all they have is their zoning code,
correct.
And they hold on to it with an iron fist, unfortunately.
Right.
But for good reason too.
Get a permit.
Right. Get a permit if you're in a village, especially.
Right.
And then there's no precedent involved, so we're going before the board. I'm trying to convince them, yeah, I know he built it with no permits and he's a foot away, but hey, yeah, it's not a big deal. It is a big deal, and I knew that, but you're trying to do the best for your client.
Sure.
and I had, you get letters of consent from the neighbors. I mean, you can only do so much. Unfortunately, they denied it, which I wasn't surprised by.
Right.
And he knew that too. So we went back to the drawing board with the architect that was on the project, and we decided to redesign it, move the pool back, and kind of, we're still going to need a variance, but it's not as substantial.
Right.
It's a small one.
Right.
So brought it to the attorney in the village, and they were pleased with our design. No, there's no guarantees with that either, but compared to what we had, I guess
Right.
this is a lot better. So
Sure.
we're in the process of moving forward with getting those building violations
Right.
taken care of and going before the zoning
Right.
board again.
Right. Right. So you have two potential situations. You have, because this comes up a lot also.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to encroach in the design. I don't want to spend the money to design it if they're going to tell me no.
Right.
And then the answer always is, well, we don't know what they're going to say.
Right, exactly.
Right. So someone that's going to do some kind of work on paper first,
Right.
not building, right? Not trying to move
Yes.
the pool, 7 feet. This is done on paper first, because it's way easier to move on paper than it is
Yes, proposed.
the
is always
bricks and the
better,
sticks.
for sure.
Right. So the only way to know when you go through a variance hearing to seek relief from the laws on the books is to show them. And then they may say, I mean, like you were saying earlier, if it's egregious, you're building right up to the property line, they may say no.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's what's your take on it? Is it no with concessions? Is it
Depends. Every case is different. A lot of times, with commercial variances, they'll attach conditions to it, and you got to be careful with that because they can't. They're really not supposed to put a condition on it that controls the business operations of it. So they try to get away with things. Sometimes you got to be careful with that. But residentially, they try to work with the homeowner.
Right.
They get it. You know
Right.
what I mean? And even though we were rejected, it was good for us
Right.
with our design because you get a lot of feedback from the board anyway.
Right.
Because they're asking questions. They're talking about, what if this was done? So you get a sense of where they're
Right.
thinking without them telling you.
Right.
So then you can take that, go back and redesign it.
Right.
To based on what they were telling you, and
Right.
then you can go, okay, now I
Right.
think we got something. here.
so it's back to this dance?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
The design professional, the attorneys involved, and now that's the liaison between the town, and it's done on paper. It's not bricks and sticks.
Right.
And you're back and forth because you have two things, right? You have zoning code, and zoning code goes first.
Yeah.
And then the building code goes second. So it goes through zoning, and if there's an issue, then now we're into this dance of back and forth, and what can we, and that might change the design a little bit, but usually it's with concession.
Yeah.
Usually, in my experience, I've never really seen a homeowner ask for something and then it's a hard no.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely not. That's where the variance comes in. They may not
Right.
give you the variance you want, but they may give you something in between.
In between, right?
You know what I mean?
With some kind of concession.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
So it's one of these things where a homeowner needs to decide that I am doing a project, and then you are on this dance with the town to get it massaged to where it's going to go. So, but the person has to be mentally ready to spend
Yeah,
and invest in the discovery phase of this process.
absolutely.
Got
And I do that with the clients too. I kind of, what can I do with this property? I want to do X, Y, and Z. And I'll sit down, I'll go through the code, I'll see what kind of, uses are
Right.
allowed.
Right. So pause for one
Sure.
second. Before we leave this one topic, because
Yeah.
that's a great next onboard. The dance happens with paper. The dance is very expensive when you're dealing with bricks and sticks and
Right.
moving after you've built.
Right.
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Right.
That doesn't really apply here.
No.
This is big dollars now. There's dollars when it's paper, but it's bigger dollars when it's built.
Oh, for
Now
sure.
it has to come down.
Yeah.
And you're on the hook for that. So the take-home message here is you start with the design professional.
Yep.
You go through the process, and then you build. The build comes second. It's design first, the process, then execution.
Spend a little to save a lot is what I always say.
Correct.
At the end of the day, you may be like, all right, this design's not going to work, and I'm not going to get the relief I want. I'm just going to scrap the idea, and you saved yourself tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the homeowner take home, number one. Okay. So now we've been through the, this early phase of your career where you have institutional knowledge that you've gained on that side of it. Now you're in practice for yourself, and somebody's, so someone's going to come to you and say, I'm buying like our client we had in Rockville Center, right? He's in discovery on making a purchase, and he wants to change use he wants to put a Korean restaurant and some karaoke bars or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So he comes to us, and then this is above our pay grade because we're not attorneys, right? So I call you.
Yeah.
So why don't you maybe give us this case study of our client there in Rockville Center?
Sure.
That's a really good snapshot of
absolutely.
On the commercial side.
What was this? I forgot what the zone was, but it was basically it was a commercial building, had a basement, was looking to do mixed use, but was looking to do restaurant on the first floor with a karaoke bar in the basement.
Correct.
And it was a mixed use building, so there was apartments upstairs.
Apartments above, yes.
Right. So first of all, you got mixed use, you're gonna have a karaoke bar. I don't know. It's gonna be a tough sell to begin with. And if you want to do it in a basement, it's got fire hazard written. True cellar. Right. It's got a fire hazard written all over it. I think they said there was a bowling alley down there when they first opened the building. It was something crazy going on in that building way back in the day.
Yeah, back in the 40s.
Yeah,
probably.
back in the 40s when there was no, you could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, it was the Wild West.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But we did our due diligence. There was restaurant use was allowed, but the karaoke bar was kind of iffy. So
so now the owner hadn't gone to closing yet.
No, he was still negotiating, but he wanted to know what he could do with the building if he would decide to go to contract and close.
Right. So we went in, we scanned the building, we did existing conditions, photo tour, so that we armed you to have the conversation with fire marshal and whatnot.
Exactly. Right. So we decided the best way to go about this was the fire marshal, speak to the village and talk to them about whether this can meet code, whether this is even a possibility, because we didn't want to waste the client's time or our time, frankly. So he told us, he goes, we've seen this done before outside of here, but you got to really speak to the fire marshal regarding, public assembly, getting people in a basement doing karaoke, ceiling heights, fire suppression.
Right.
There was a lot involved.
Yep.
Including the Korean barbecue, which has these things that propel down from the ceiling and cook the meat, which I've never seen before, but it's a popular thing. And it's infrared.
Yep.
Supposedly it's smokeless, but they need, there's a lot of technology involved with the cooking.
Yep.
So it was a cool concept, but I don't think that was the right spot for the client.
Right.
So at the end of the day, he decided.
I think he pulled off.
He pulled away. Yeah, he decided to back out of the deal. He's still hunting for something else.
Right.
So hopefully we can help him find something eventually and execute this dream he has.
Yeah.
I think he does it he has a few in the city.
He has, he has established.
So it's not something new to him. Yeah.
Right. The code's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Allowable use is different. So, but that's an example of an investor or a real estate developer that would come to you before purchase to go through discovery.
Right, a zoning feasibility analysis.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So that would be someone in that space would come to you for. Now, we had a client together over on Fire Island where she was going to rip down the existing and build new on a small lot, and she wanted to maximize the space.
Yes.
And we've got all sorts of sticky things here.
Yes.
Right away, we know this is variance and use and
green space and everything else. It was
correct.
It was a heavy lift.
It was a very heavy lift. Yeah. Right. So in that instance, right, the client comes to us, we go through proposed, take it through schematics, do a site plan, get the survey, go through discovery, right? And then I turn that file over to you, and then now your responsibility, you take it from there and do?
Basically try to have a meeting, I guess, at that point with the village, if I know what the variances are probably going to be, and be like, listen, has this ever been done before? What are the chances of this? Because you always want to give them notice of what you're doing. You don't want to spring this onto anybody, and it's a good way to develop a rapport with the village or the township before you even get started, so you know who to call, who not to call, who's going to get back to you, and if you have questions, you can call them, no problem. So I always like to have a meeting with the building department.
Right. So for something like this, where we kind of start to see that, oh boy.
Yeah, when you see red flags right away, it's always good to just speak to the township immediately. So get it out there right away.
Right, and take it to a point. So you have to develop. You have to go through discovery.
Right.
Right. You got to get your test bores and your elevation certificates and your surveys and your existing conditions, and then do some light schematics to say this is kind of what we want to do. Like, right.
Yep.
Not definitive. We're not going to detail out strapping and Stimson clips and window schedules yet, right? We're just going to
Just a footprint.
We're going to draw it,
exactly.
give you a footprint, give you some elevations, kind of this is what the client wants, and then now you're going to go have the conversation.
Yeah, and before you even started with that, I had to talk to her about merging her lots because there was an issue with the common ownership.
Right.
And if she merged them, what she could do versus keeping them single and separate. So that was an issue too that we deal with a lot of developers as well.
Right. So merging lots.
Merging lots
would be something, or breaking them apart.
Yeah, I
possible,
think
right?
In this case,
in this case, she was merging.
I think she was merging. She had common ownership, and it was in the town code already that if they are common ownership, it merges by law.
By law, gotcha.
It was good
gotcha.
to go.
Gotcha. So in our practice, and then this may be a good lead-in. Once I start seeing and hearing about the land use, right, or change of use, or things of that nature where it's starting to look complicated, my call goes to you.
Yeah.
Now, client wants to, put a deck on the backyard, and maybe it's infringing a little bit. Maybe that call comes to you, but maybe not.
I handle everything. I take the small and the big stuff.
So I
don't say no to much.
Anything. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you'll take everything.
Not at this point in my career.
Gotcha. Okay. So good. I'm glad that I clarified that. So then, help us understand maybe the difference between the land use attorney and the expediter.
Well, the land use attorney, they deal with the municipality on the legal front of things, getting prepared for the hearing, getting your exhibits together. So what I like to do when I'm preparing for a hearing, the expediters already pretty much did their job. They filed the building permits, they filed the zoning board of appeals application. I take the rejection letter and whatever we're rejected for. Okay, so we got this variance, and this variance. What I like to do first, I'll do a FOIL request because I always want to know everything about the building that I have. And depending on what the variance is, I like to do FOILs on the surrounding properties. That's my first step because if I'm going to ask for something, I want to make sure that other buildings have gotten it in the past.
Sure.
For instance, I had something in North Hempstead. You talk about the small things. It was a little nothing. It was a gable or a gazebo in the front of the house. It was just an overhang. But it was a 2-foot front yard setback. But I had to do my due diligence and find other houses on the block that had that because it wasn't to code. And then sure enough, there was 2 houses on the same block that asked for the same thing. So I was able to make my case to the board that there was precedent as recent as 2 years ago where they passed something similar. And it's a home run because at that point it's like you can't, to back up the precedent from 2 years ago, the front yard setback was more relief requested than what we were requesting. So it's definitely a home run. I'm only asking for 2 feet.
Right.
They got 4. What's the issue here?
Yeah,
Should be no issue.
Right.
So when you come with that, and you find that out in the beginning, that's you got a great argument to start out.
Right. So the expediter serves your office in document management,
running things back and forth, document management, making sure everything's filled out correctly.
Right. They may have nice relationships in a particular.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That helps to.
They facilitate things when if I need something done or if I need them to reach out to somebody. They may have the relationship I don't have.
That you don't have.
So I'm depending on them to kind of either get me in the room with them or just speak to the person and give me a message depending on the situation.
So it kind of equates to, as the architecture firm, you've got the licensed architect, right, who's licensed.
Yep.
Would be the same as the attorney here. And then you have a draftsman who works for the architect the same way that an expediter would work alongside of you in the document management side of things.
Absolutely.
And the same way that the architect has the state license, CE, he's put his time in, passed tough exams, and is responsible for the health and safety and welfare of building out and developing the property. The draftsman works for the architect, right?
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, a draftsman is not allowed. He's not drawing the drawings, and he doesn't have a stamp.
No, he's drafting, and then you're basically saying, good job with the stamp.
Correct.
As far as I know.
Correct. So it's the same analogy. It's
absolutely
the architect is to the attorney as the expediter is to the draftsman. Now, we all work together.
But the support staff is just as important, if not more.
At the
end of the day.
100%. I had no interest in walking into Brookhaven. I remember, I just don't. The eye is going to twitch.
Not on camera,
I remember during the COVID years that we were wrapping up. We were servicing, on the expediting side in-house. And I remember during the COVID years, they had a bucket out in front.
Oh yeah.
And you'd have to put your plans in it and then rifle through for your comments yourself.
Oh yeah.
And I said, oh no.
I remember the town of Huntington was like that. You couldn't. You had to sit in the front, and you had to bring your paperwork, and someone to come down and get it, and you couldn't. Reaching people was it was
right.
I mean, I get it. It's very.
It's very difficult
very
on
difficult.
their end too.
It's on their end.
They're dealing with a lot of numbers.
The logistics of it all, and making sure everything runs smooth, and things can't come to a standstill in the government.
No, right. It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
You know,
so they had.
And it was no one's ever dealt with this before, so I mean,
correct,
you give them a break.
Correct.
You know.
Correct. But it was. I guess my take-home point is everybody should stay in their lanes.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So. You stay in your lane, the expedite stays in their lane, the architect stays in their lane, the draftsman stays in their lane.
The broker stays in their lane.
The broker stays in their lane, right? So everyone sort of,
yeah.
But everyone has vested interest.
Yeah.
You know, and I say this, frequently. We're all touching real estate in some capacity. You grab it and you describe it a certain way.
Yeah.
I grab it and I describe it a certain way. And another person grabs it and, describes it a certain way. We're all describing, one person describes a tusk, another person describes a leg, another person describes a tail, another person describes a trunk. We're all blindfolded, and we all are saying something different, but when we all take the blindfolds off, we're all touching the same elephant,
And it's huge to have a great team.
That's
the key, too.
Thank you.
You need, and that's, going into my practice, starting, I knew right away I needed architects, engineers, brokers, and appraisers, everyone that's involved. I need 2 or 3 people I can rely on. Title people.
Correct. Correct.
You got to have people you can go, I know a guy, and
That's
you got to be able to rely on them and know they're not going to screw it up.
100%. And we're of the same, because you just know that nobody is doing this on their own.
Yeah.
It's just not.
No.
So we have an intake that came in yesterday. It's a 4-story building in near Bamontes in Brooklyn.
Okay.
What is that? Not Greenpoint.
Williamsburg?
Yes, Williamsburg. Thank you. Yeah. And so she wants to remove some walls. It's 4 stories. I know that I'm bringing DeLandro Engineering in because I have to do probe plan and look to see what the structure looks like, and I'm not going into the boroughs without my expediter, who, has been doing this for 40, 45 years.
Yeah.
And, we're not going in without a solid team that I could push the button.
Right.
You just can't.
Yeah.
Exactly. So everybody's touching real estate in some capacity. When you talk about, a transaction and there's a broken CO and the realtor's got a dog in the game, the broker's got a dog in the game, and the homeowners want to sell, but now there's this, Uncle Bob and Grandpa built this in 1974, and now there's all sorts of issues, and maybe you're involved, but because everyone's moving toward the same goal.
Right.
It's a team approach.
It is. It could be great, and it could, as long as you have the right people on your team, it's great.
Very smooth. Very smooth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, well, this was good.
Yeah, this was great, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I hope that folks watching was able to glean some content out of here that maybe makes your life. We're trying to add value and talk the topics that maybe aren't spoken about in such candid manners, that it's sort of urban legend. There's a lot of urban legend
Absolutely.
that reigns in
People
the real
have preconceived notions about real estate
of
and
where things are.
municipalities
Right.
and
Yeah.
Long Island in general. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
So if you're watching, just take a breath and start to, reach out to the experts that have the experience and get your needs met. So I hope that this was valuable to you. If you happen to be watching and you're a subject matter expert in some capacity around real estate and like to come on the podcast, please, message us. You'll see all the information in below. We can have a conversation, talk it up, and if there's value that we see that we can, add to the general community, we'd maybe love to have you on. So, but until the next time, we want to, Anthony, thanks.
Thanks again. Thanks for having me. This was great.
We'll see you next time here, Talking Shop in the Shop.